Hello and welcome to the 10th community meeting of Aragon. And this is quite a special one for us because last week the Aragon core version 0.5 beta was launched. So that's great news. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Luis, who is going to do a quick project update.
Hey everyone. So I'm very happy to share that we are finally, in business. As you may know, many of you have tried 0.5 ads, and we are super thankful to more than the 1,000 people, or at least 1,000 ads that have been created for now, which I've been just told that it's even more than that right now. So that's awesome to hear, and also we're getting a lot of feedback product-wise, so we're gonna improve it gradually. It's super cool because 0.5 is a work of a lot of months, even like a year. And during this year, we've been making sure that 0.5 is fully upgradable. So in the coming weeks, we are going to, push out a lot of incremental upgrades, and that's going to be easy because of the Aragon OS architecture and also the work that we put out to make the Aragon package manager. So that's cool because of all of that research. And for this, for us, it marks a new cycle in which we're going to be focused on a lot of user feedback, and we're going to be focused also on building out the Aragon network, which, as you may know, is the world's first digital system. So we are super excited to start this new planning and also feedback and enhancement cycle, research cycle as well. As always, keeping you guys in the loop about everything that we are doing here at the Aragon. In the Aragon.
There's a bit of background noise coming from you. So if you can be closer to the mic next time you're talking. Jorge, did you have anything you wanted to say regarding the 0.5 launch?
Yeah, can you hear me a bit better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have the mic. Nothing special that we haven't said in the release notes or and the communications that we've been doing. Just congratulate everyone again for a super flawless launch, which is amazing. We've discovered user paths and stuff that is can be improved, but no major bugs, almost no downtime. So it's been great. So thanks everyone for your hard work, and also for all the work that hasn't been development, because all communications has been flawless, helping user has been flawless, everyone in the community helping each other has been great. So it's been quite good.
Yeah. Also, before closing the project updates, it would be great if Maria talks a little bit about Nest, because I think there were also huge updates on that end.
Yes, there will be more news.
Yeah, so on that end, Nest has been very, very successful, a very successful program. A lot of people are applying to it, and through Nest, we are trying to decentralize the development of the project a little bit. There are a lot of things that, of course, just a team of 13 people cannot manage to do, and through Nest we are funding those efforts and building. We are focusing on funding the building and development of development tools for Aragon and also for Ethereum, and we are going to announce the first batch of Nest in the coming days, and so stay tuned.
All right, thanks, Maria. And as she mentioned, we will have more updates regarding the Nest program and the grantees coming in the blog, as well as, of course, chat, Twitter, and everything. Okay, well, with the updates done, we'll move over to the AMA, which stands for Ask Me Anything or Ask Us Anything section of the meeting. There is a AMA thread always at the Aragon project subreddit where you can post questions ahead of the meeting or if you are watching this live stream, feel free to post your questions in the live stream chat as well. All right, time for the first question. Did you think that the Ethereum community would vote in a separate DAO, for example, EIP proposals? Did you communicate with the Ethereum Foundation about this? Could the community vote as a DAO? And has there been communications? Go ahead,
Yeah,
please, Jorge.
So, I mean, we've been in touch with Ethereum Foundation, of course, because we know a lot of some nice people there. But we haven't really talked so much about like using a DAO for the proposals. I mean, we're thinking about it, of course, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Remember, like from my end, I think it makes a lot of sense to make the EIP process better. Maybe using a DAO, because that would be the sort of logic way of doing things. But we haven't really, like, there are no conclusions yet. Like, we are just talking to them, brainstorming. They are super nice, so that's it.
Okay, thanks, Luis. Moving over to the next question. Are there any projects in the Ethereum community that test the latest version for future use and share their opinions and wishes? If so, what are these projects? Well, I can say that hopefully many people from different projects are testing. And with that, I think, Maria, doing the strategy, do you want to answer the question?
Yeah. So yeah, we have been talking with different projects, especially through Aragon Labs. We started working on that front before the launching, but normally we that's Aragon Labs is an effort that is led by Luke, and so for the moment we are focused on the token created registries and also the liquid democracy workshop. And so, but a lot of projects, are trying the DApp and are saying how they could integrate Aragon into their to convert their projects into community-driven project.
Thanks, Maria. Anyone else want to answer this one?
Yeah, I can think of at least one project off the top of my head, and that is, of course, not to minimize the great other projects that have been using it, but Yalda from Space Decentral has been pretty active in the Aragon chat, giving us feedback and suggestions for about 0.5, and of course she gave a talk at ETHCC about how Space Decentral plans on using Aragon for community governance. So I think that's a prominent one worth pointing out.
That is a good point. Thanks, John. All right, hopping over to the next question. Will there be a verification of the account, for example, using CVU port? Can I now integrate these applications into the latest version before running on mainnet? I would say that, Brett, if you can start by talking a little about the Aragon ID system, and then Jorge add something.
Sorry, I hope you can hear me. I just couldn't figure out how to unmute myself quickly. But so Aragon ID is something that literally is just an ENS mapping to an address right now that we're using. So this is really upgradable in the future, where if, for example, you have a UPort ID, that's just an Ethereum address, and you can have an ENS mapping to that Ethereum address that we recognize then in the Aragon app.
Thanks, Brett. Jorge, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that is still like under consideration. We're in close contact with the people at UPort. Actually, we have a meeting with them like right after this call. But in my personal opinion, like Aragon shouldn't have to integrate with any identity solutions in like concretely. It should be like either the identity solution is like taken care of at the Web3 provider layer. So like if you have an address and that address is like somehow linked to the Web3 provider, and that's great. But I don't think we will see, at least not soon, like inside the Aragon UI, like Uport or Civic integration. That's probably like maybe like how these things are, but that's not on the roadmap. And we'll just integrate with a vanilla Web3 experience, at least for now. And then we have our own very very thin identity layer just for making things work.
Yeah, and what I will add to that is that, of course, the question poses that can I integrate these applications? Well, yes, there's of course the capability that you can develop an app for Aragon, which we are providing currently, the 3 default apps: voting, finance, token manager, and of course the vault. So you are always welcome to develop an integration or an app as well for any kinds of use cases. Okay, next question would be, this is from the email thread, but John has posted this on behalf of Ludmila from the Aragon chat. Are you developing an API to Aragon Core / Aragon OS? We are thinking about some automation on token holders registrations.
What is meant by API here? I guess that's weird to ask because he might not be listening right now. But in terms of like APIs to interact with Aragon OS, we sort of do have one. It's called Aragon JS, and you can use that to develop your own apps, interact with DAOs and the apps that are installed in that DAO. It will give you all the metadata necessary, and it will also route transactions for you using permission escalation. But in terms of like a specific API for a specific app, we don't really have that. We have a more generalized approach to how we interact with DAOs and apps. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. If that didn't answer the question fully, then I'm sorry, but I'm interested to hear more. So if that person could reach out to me on Rocket Chat, I would be interested in continuing the conversation.
Awesome, thanks, Oliver. I will make sure that she will ping you. Anyone else want to participate on answering this one? Okay. And another question that has been posted to the AMA thread by John from Aragon chat. Can DAOs change names?
Yes, but not yet.
That was short and simple. Thanks, Jorge. And also, next question from the AMA thread from Aragon chat. In Aragon Core 0.5, what is the difference between a democracy and a multi-sig organization? Who wants to take this one?
Yeah, I guess I can take this. So the only two kits that we have in 0.5 are actually very very similar. The only difference between the democracy that we call it and the multisig is how in the case of the multisig, the token manager, it only allows one token per person, and that token is not transferable. So by using like the same voting app and the same and some different permissions, like only token holders of the token manager can create new votes. You basically can simulate a multi-sig by using the same token manager and the same voting app. This is something that in the UI we haven't like made super, like we haven't made the differentiation clear, but even though they use the same apps, because they're wired differently in the ACL. They're basically can allow for different, like completely different governance models. But we will have more kits and more interesting stuff. This is kind of like an example of how, like, using the same components, if you wire them in a different way, if you configure them differently, you can have completely different governance structures.
Thanks, Jorge. I guess that kind of covers it pretty well. So for the next question is, when will the details of using ANT on the platform, examination about economic incentives, etc.? Well, it's going to be a while. The network is something that's going to come later once the Aragon core platform is functioning well, and there's still quite a bit of development that's needed for the network to come alive. Of course, there's a lot of work also on the incentives and everything, and I would encourage anyone interested in discussing the topic of ANT on platform joining the Aragon.chat, and of course, generally joining the chat there. But of course, I think, Luke, you can probably give some more insights on how that might look like.
Yeah, we're still deep in research. So I don't know how much we want to kind of confirm because it's still very much in flux. But the ANT token will be used to govern the Aragon network DAO. And a good place to kind of discuss that and talk about stuff that's in progress is to join the governance channel on Aragon chat. So just hashtag governance. That's where a lot of the discussion will happen.
All right, thanks, Luke. So next question is, will projects be able to change governance mechanisms between democracy and multi-sig and those to come sometime after the project has been deployed? What about changing the chosen mechanism details? In example, for democracy, support quorum, etc. 0.5 warns the user it cannot be changed later. So I wondered if this would change in the future. Jorge, I think you probably have some details on this.
Yeah, pretty much like right now it's like the reason we have that message is like with the current decent like application that we shipped, it's not possible to change the governance mechanism. It's totally possible if you just interact with the contracts directly, but that might not be a great idea to do so because like changing from one governance model to another, like it's purposely like quite hard, and if your organization is set up correctly, that should be something that is like a very tricky process with like a lot of delays, because like people are usually used to like the way the organization works. But there will be, of course, like if the organization configuration or bylaws allows for that, there will be a way to transition governance models. But of course, the rules for how that can happen will be up to the organization. So, I mean, we're working on an app manager to deploy new apps to your organization. We're working also on like having a good permissions app so you can see all the wiring that your organization has and what would it take to change that wiring to another governance model, and that's coming very soon. That's why we say that it's not possible, but of course, like the DAO is like yours or it's like no one's, but the DAO has rules for how to upgrade itself and how to change the governance model, and that will be changeable if the DAO allows so.
Thanks, Jorge. Anyone else feel like answering anything on this?
I feel it's important to reiterate the point that you don't necessarily switch between democracy and multi-sig in the sense that it's not dependent upon us to release a new governance mechanism for you. When the permissions app is out, it will be possible for you to connect the apps in the ways that you want, and possibly even like invent new governance mechanisms or something that works perfectly for your DAO but might not work for other DAOs. So when the permissions app is out, it's not going to be like a click of like, I want a multisig now, I want a democracy now, or whatever. Those are templates, and they're meant to bootstrap your DAO, not necessarily to be the only configurations that your DAO can exist in.
Thanks, Oliver. And while you got up to speed and talking, I think this next one is just right up your alley. So let's take a question from the live chat. Colleagues, when listing on Binance?
So I think I get this one every community meeting, and we're on the 10th now. So Binance, when Polo, when insert exchange here. The problem is, like, we have to pay to get listed on exchanges, and that might be the business model, but we're not interested in paying money to get listed on exchanges, so people can trade our coin right now, especially because it would be nothing more than speculation. We want to focus on building out our product and not making sure that like our token is pumped, because that's not what we're in for. We're in for the long term. So when Binance, when they want to list us, and you can ask Binance instead of asking us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like continuing on this topic, like all the exchanges that have listed us, like they did it because they wanted to. Yeah, I don't know if I can share too much about how Bittrex decided to to list us, but there hadn't been any communication between Aragon and Bittrex, like at least not two-way communication, and they decided to list us. And like they don't have to ask for permission. We don't have to ask for them to list us. If they want to list us, they can do it. It's their fucking business to make money out of people trading. And that's kind of the issue. That's why they ask for money, because there are a lot of coins that are pretty profitable, because like it's like just pure speculation and they're making a lot of money. So, but it's we're not in the business of extortion, and we're not gonna be paying like millions of dollars, as we know other fellow crypto projects are doing to these big exchanges. It's something that everyone in the teams feels strongly about. But at the end of the day, whenever we have a signaling app to like take the real pulse of the community, not just like three loud voices in like an trader or whatever, we will really see if this is a real pressing need by all the stakeholders of ANT. And if that's the case, or if liquidity is needed for the network to function properly, which is something that we're not sure yet, then we'll do it. But we're pretty against like paying like $1 million ransoms to exchanges to like put ANT and our address there, which is like everything that would take for them to do it.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Oliver. So next question from the AMA thread, posted by John from Max Flyer in the Aragon chat. Is there a list of Aragon OS apps under construction by third parties? What I can say is at wiki.aragon.one/projects, we have a list of projects that are currently using Aragon OS in some capacity, and as well as a short list of projects that have publicly mentioned or announced their interest in becoming a powered by Aragon usage. But for now, I don't think there is anyone maintaining a list of, well, for Aragon apps. Okay, that's a bit different. So I'll turn that over to Jorge or Oliver.
Yeah, I have to say that there are a couple teams that are working on Aragon OS apps, very cool ones indeed. One of them is Pando. It's basically a Git repo that is used like uses Aragon OS, and basically a DAO can govern a like a Git repo, which is pretty crazy and awesome. And there is this project by Georgi Valena called DAppNode, which is using the APM registry, which is basically our package manager. And then there's another team which is basically like a plan app on Aragon, similar to like you complete tasks and therefore you get like you get bounties and stuff like that. Which is also using not only Aragon OS but also implementing a full Aragon app in the front end. So those are some of the projects that we are aware of, and some of the projects that we are also funding via the Nest grants program.
Brett, you had a comment on this. Okay, I can't hear anything from you, Brett, even though you seem to be unmuted. Now you're muted. Okay, well, what I think you wanted to mention is that also during the @Denver hackathon, there were some teams who were also building on Aragon OS and on Aragon, and there were some really cool teams and projects. We rewarded a few of them with the best app/integration, as well as a non-code related best integration or best proposal for an app or for things related to Aragon. And in the near future, we are also going to be in some other hackathons, for example, at Buenos Aires, where people can also hack on Aragon OS related apps as well as other things, and there will be some team members helping them or perhaps even hacking themselves. At this point, I'll remind that you can also post some questions in the live chat if you're watching. We have a few questions also left, but at this point, I would also like to introduce Joel is here also joining the chat again from Placeholder. Joel, anything you want to mention on the meeting?
Sorry, Tatsu, can you repeat that? It's a little choppy in my end.
Yeah. Was there something you wanted to bring up in this meeting? And thanks for joining.
Anytime. I'm mostly here. I wanted to get everyone's take on the last release. I know that the last month has been a big one for Aragon, and we've been following how the testnet release has grown. Am I correct that you've seen over and sorry if I'm making you repeat yourself, that we've seen over 1,000 DAOs deployed on the testnet thus far?
Yes, the numbers would be about there. I think there's like almost 1,000 democracy projects and I think a few hundred multi-sig deployments so far.
Got it. And we're also in the process of working with the foundation to participate in the community multi-sig, which we're very excited about. I don't know if that change has taken effect yet, but it's something that we're thrilled to be a part of.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. For your other comment, anyone want to share their sentiments regarding 0.5 launch and what has been happening after the launch?
I would say that it's been going great. We've had a lot of people active in the Aragon chat asking questions, setting up DAOs, spontaneously forming DAOs together. So I would say anybody who's interested in trying to use Aragon Core, we had a community member, Joseph Gray, who just published a really great blog post the other day called DAO Workshop, where he kind of runs through how to set up the basic democracy DAO and talks through, you know, each of the apps that are available and how to create votes and spend money from the DAO and things like that. You can follow those instructions to set up a DAO, and then once you're ready to try it out with somebody else, feel free to jump in the Aragon chat, post your DAO address, and see who joins, and see, you know, try to get some proposals going. It's time for some game theory. Get some games going on within the DAO. Kind of, you know, just kick the tires, try it out. Let us know what you think.
What have you seen any patterns in how in the sort of the ways people are structuring their DAOs? Any interesting sort of findings that surprise you?
Yeah, so as Jorge just pointed out in the chat, people like democracy. So a lot of the DAOs are democracy DAOs, which is essentially one token, one vote. It's not quite a democracy, but in a lot of the cases, people are just giving each member of the organization one token. So it is like a direct democracy of sorts. Yeah, that seems to be the main kind of governance pattern. All of my DAOs have been controlled by cartels, because I have like 5 different MetaMask accounts that I'm using to, you know, to like, because first I just create the DAO and it's just my DAO, and so I have to have more accounts to make it interesting. But then other people decide to join the DAO, so I'm like, okay, well now I have this cartel that kind of still controls it. But yeah,
maybe that should be one of the templates, a cartel DAO.
yeah, that would be a fun one. Yeah, so people are having fun with it. It's great to see. I'm also just learning about, you know, how Aragon OS works almost just by proxy. You know, just poking around the basic templates that we have right now. So it's cool to see this stuff like working for real on testnet.
How's the interest in the TCR framework? How have you seen that evolve, or your own thinking? How has it evolved over time? I know that we've all been pretty excited about TCRs for a while, and or at least on our side, we've also been excited by Aragon as a, you know, just the idea of how you phrase it, of governance over a registry, is something that's both very elegant but also very powerful.
Yeah, myself personally, so I've read a lot about TCRs, and I watched a really great interview that Mike Golden gave on the District 0x live stream a couple weeks ago about TCRs. But, you know, since right now, for me, a lot of it's still theoretical. I mean, it makes sense, and as you say, it seems like a very powerful mechanism for governing a registry, but I haven't participated in one yet and haven't seen one using real money. So I think that's when things will get interesting. I'll let Luke chime in if he has anything in addition to say about this, because we do have a TCR working group going on, and he has a close finger on the pulse of that.
Yeah, definitely. Through that TCR working group, I've talked to a number of projects, a number of people that are kind of looking to either build or deploy TCRs or just kind of exploring the idea. And what we're specifically working on in that group is the idea of kind of modular TCRs. So taking advantage of the Aragon OS framework and the DApp framework to create separate modules for separation of concerns. So you could have a voting app that is interchangeable with like a delegated voting app, or partial lock commit reveal voting, or potentially even something like Futarchy down the road. And being able to interchange that using the same registry component and the same staking component. And through the conversations that I've had with people, that's really appealing, because depending on the use case for the registry, people are unsure if the specific set of incentives or the specific mechanics of that registry is going to scale to different types of registries. So like the ad chain registry is going to be the first one that's deployed on mainnet that's following the TCR pattern. I think that's happening in April, according to Mike. So we'll see how that works. But a lot of the people that are exploring this, they have slightly different models. They're trying to do slightly different things. And the ability to kind of reuse a lot of this code, swap out different modules is really appealing. For our part, we've kind of got a planning documentation. We've gotten some of the basic code proof of concept stuff for like a work in progress staking app or the registry thing. But now that we've launched 0.5, hopefully we'll start to see some more tangible stuff come out of that working group.
Yeah, thanks. So, and on this topic, you talked a bit about the staking component. That app is like close to being merged to our apps as one of our other apps. We still don't have a UI for that, but the contracts are like being tested and need to be audited. But also this app is compatible with the ERC 900 standard that just got merged as a draft in the EIP's repo thing last week. So that's pretty good. And we have been seeing like other projects that are thinking about making their stuff ERC 900 compatible. And what that will mean is like you will be able to see, for example, from wallets, where do you have stakes, and if you can like remove your stake or not at that point. This will also, for example, we're adding ERC 900 staking support to our vault, because a stake, it's actually very similar to a token, like in like both architecturally and in conceptually. If you think about it, it's pretty similar to a token. So pretty stoked about ERC 900 and happy to see that it's getting some adoption, or like potential adoption in the community. We just need to make Casper ERC 900 compatible, which they're not. They say that maybe it's not super compatible, but since there's not a formal spec on the Casper interface, it's hard to know.
That's really exciting. Do you think there's a role for Aragon in, because I'm thinking about the user interface of TCRs, and of course, I can take many different shapes. Do you think that Aragon's role or potential role in the development of this model is more in the background and letting people set up their TCRs and set up the rules and then customize their interfaces outside of Aragon, or do you expect to eventually have a standard or interface or a standard set of interfaces for different kinds of TCRs that live within the Aragon UI framework?
Yeah, I think definitely. Actually, there is a TCR implementation right now that doesn't use Aragon OS yet, but it's using Aragon UI, our UI toolkit. So that's very funny that they're building that. And so, yeah, I believe we're working a lot on UX and making sure that the UIs we build are actually sort of super generic, because Aragon can be used for many different organizational structures. And so we're looking into TCRs, obviously, and we're also looking into building like a super generic UI for TCRs. So that's something that we will do. Also, probably Luke can share a little bit about that, because of his work on labs and specifically TCRs and other projects that are helping us. Now we're definitely working on that. Like TCRs are, together with the staking app, are a couple of things that we are working right now in terms of research, but probably we'll get into production soon.
Thank you.
And also, we also have a Bingen, who is a Solidity engineer at Aragon, who will likely be working with look closely on labs initiatives. Of course, depending where the resources are needed, but probably some type of back-end stuff in regards to smart contracts is something that he will be working on. And well, as a question to you, Joel, how was your experience with the 0.5 pin so far?
Well, we are working on creating a DAO. We're thinking about what kind of DAO we might create, and maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but Chris and I are pretty excited about the potential to create a we call it a placeholder foundation, even though it wouldn't be actually we're thinking about what we call the placeholder prize, and we're thinking about a DAO that allows the community to both fund and vote on rewarding academic research on the blockchain space. And we're thinking through how we might build that on Aragon, and how we might grow that to be an interesting project involving multiple members of the community. The idea there would be that we could raise money into this DAO, and then on a maybe yearly or semi-yearly basis, have the shareholders or the stakeholders in that DAO vote on any academic research work that is submitted to it. We're pretty ambitious. It's kind of like think of it as the Nobel Prize for crypto run on Aragon. So something we're very excited about and looking forward to working on.
Yeah, that sounds like a great use case. At this point, let's jump back in for the questions again. We can go back these things as well. So a question. Curious what happened to Shitpost Capital. I'm wondering, since the link to it died. Totally fine if the call was made to kill the project. I just like the idea and would be curious to know what happened. I'm thinking Jorge, Oliver, could either one of you answer?
So I'm a representative of Shitpost Capital. The reason that Shitpost Capital, the link is broken, is because we had some potential team members who didn't really like the name. So we changed the name to Nonsense Capital instead. So you can find it on GitHub under Nonsense Capital.
We want to be as inclusive as possible with all the stakeholders in Nonsense. So yeah, that's it. And I also replied in Reddit, so we didn't have to answer this here. But since it popped up, it's a very exciting project.
Yes, you can learn more following the GitHub link or that Oliver mentioned. Okay, a question. So what are the chances Aragon gets listed on Coinbase? Are the token mechanics defined enough to not qualify it as a security? And if the token does look like a security, what functionality can be added or removed to change that status?
I think this is too similar to the Binance stuff. Like, this is out of our control. So I wouldn't do more chain talk today.
All right, answered. Next one. Does Aragon have any plan to capture the coming boom in security token offerings to provide governance to corporations? Are there any partnerships in the works with Polymath, Harbor, or other players in this space? Who wants to?
Yeah, I mean, on our end, we are building technology that is illegal, so technology that is not, that doesn't necessarily go hand in hand by the current legal frameworks, because it's, an Aragon DAO, it's super extensible. You can do.
Sorry, Luis, I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I was saying that Aragon is pretty much illegal. So basically, we try to do things that are outside of the things that are very extensible, and you can use them for everything, not only the templates slash very rigid system that the legal framework provides you. So that's why we are just building this software, and we're not focused on actual like legal use cases inside the traditional legacy world. So while I think it's interesting, we are not particularly focused on security, so on the blockchain or any other related stuff.
And to add on that a little bit, our initial target is crypto projects, and projects like us that are community-driven projects and based on a token. If they have a token, is going to have that token is going to have is essential for the product that they are building. But having said that, it doesn't mean that anybody can use Aragon for whatever they want. So I mean, normal companies can use it as well and can tokenize their shares as well. And I think that's a very interesting use case as well.
Okay, thanks for the answers. We have a new question from the live chat. Hi, Jake. But the question is from Samuel Burton asking, hi, what kind of organizations can be managed by A&T holders entirely that are for profit? I was thinking like hedge funds, etc. Well, you don't need to be an A&T holder to run any kind of DAO on the Aragon platform, but you can basically run any kind of organization. Joel, do you want to comment on this one?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So what kind of organizations can be managed, well, let's say on the Aragon platform entirely that are for profit? I was thinking like hedge funds, etc.
So the beauty of Aragon is that you can really, it depends on how deep into the code you go in a way. If you want to use Aragon OS and build custom kinds of organizations using the basic tool sets, then you can really create any kind of organization that you want. You could run a traditional company just on Aragon if you decide not to incorporate, say, in Delaware or in a traditional jurisdiction, and you say, you know what, I'm going to run a coffee shop that's, it's got a couple of shareholders and it has income and costs and all of that and payroll and so on. You can run that on Aragon, or you can customize Aragon to suit those needs. Where Aragon becomes really powerful is in providing a platform for us to come up with new kinds of organizations that behave in new, more interesting ways. One way to think about it is that right now, when it comes to setting up an organization for any purpose, whether it's a nonprofit purpose or a for-profit purpose, we kind of have to use the frameworks that are given to us by our governments. There's a certain way of running a foundation that is enforced by states. There's a certain way to run companies and so on. And so to answer the question more directly, what you can do with Aragon is you can really get creative and you can create new kinds of organizational structures. Now, in terms of for-profits, you can do all of the usual stuff or all of the stuff that already exists. You could set up something that resembles a fund. You could set up something that resembles a standard business with revenues. You could set up something that's a TCR that you could consider, depending on how you structure a TCR, it could be a for-profit type of organization if that token appreciates as the value of the registry appreciates as well. It's a convoluted way of saying, whatever you want is kind of the secret sauce here. We now have a platform with which we can come up with new kinds of for-profit schemes that go beyond the standard set of organizations that we operate in today.
Yeah, and I would like to add that yes, like Joel said, through Aragon and also through these new blockchain technology tools, we get to define what for profit is, right? So for profit is not only a business that receives revenues, for example. So the network, the Aragon network, is never going to be charging, I don't know, fees for the use of the decentralized application, or it's not going to have like normal revenues, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be for profit. There is going to be new business models and new definition of what for profit is.
Absolutely. And to pick up the example of what Chris and I are working on, for example, the placeholder price, if that, just to give a sense of what that might look like in terms of, you wouldn't consider a price or a research price DAO to be a for-profit endeavor, and it isn't in spirit. But the way you can construct these things, you can imagine a scenario where there's a finite amount of tokens that allow for people to vote on how the price is allocated. And if the price over time becomes more and more important and more valuable to the world, you can imagine increasing demand for the tokens that give people the right to vote on who gets the prize. And as a result, if you participated in the prize community early, you may find that later in time, you may profit from selling your right to vote on the prize to someone else. And at that point, you realize the profit, even though the organization itself or the DAO itself is not designed to produce conventional profits. But we can still sort of see how the market can begin to price and value the different kinds of structures that we may come up with using this platform.
All right, thanks for the awesome answers. Another question from the live chat. This is from OG Foundation. Are there any models/plans for revenue streams for Aragon? Who wants to answer this one?
We don't do like enterprise sales or stuff like that because it's a different business model. Right now, Aragon is being funded because of the Ethereum token sale, and in the future, what will happen is that if we implement a network that is valuable for people, then AMT will rise up in value, and therefore we will have more funds because we will be able to sell AMT at a higher price. So that is the revenue stream, if you will, that the foundation and companies within Aragon will have.
Thanks, Luis. Okay, next question from the live chat. Gallagher Engineering asks, is there a mechanism in the platform that allows for the power to transfer over time away from the initial founders? In example, I may do all the work and hold all the power in the beginning, but not forever. Yes, this is basically already possible, since you can just assign tokens with the governance power or voting power over the organization. And for more complex models, Jorge, you want to answer that?
Sorry, Tato, can you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
Yeah. So, what kind of mechanisms does the platform allow for people to transfer power over the organization from the initial founders to others over time?
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about with the template change at the beginning. I mean, this is like the DAO can transition its governance model according to its rules for how that can happen. And always in case of a permissions, I'm getting a bit technical, whoever is the manager for a permission, that is like the entity that can decide who can grant that permission forward. What it can do is it can revoke a certain permission from anyone and say, okay, in this DAO, this action is no longer permitted. An example would be if Ethereum was running on Aragon, they could decide, okay, up to until this point, we have been doing hard forks to like solve some issues, but now we are not gonna do that anymore. Like we revoke our permission to do hard forks if one could do such thing. So that's something that can be done, or someone could decide, okay, now rather than, if this was the case, the Ethereum Foundation decided when hard fork is done, this will be done, like decided by a general assembly of like stakeholders in like the major projects or whatever. So this is like totally doable.
Thanks. For right now, we do not have more questions. Anyone else or anyone here participating want to say anything? The floor is open. All right. Well, at this point, I want to say thank you, Joel, from his placeholder, for joining us on this meeting. Thanks, everyone on the team. Thanks, everyone, for your questions. We'll be doing another community meeting again in a month or so. We are regularly scheduled to have these live stream meetings on the first Friday of every month. Sometimes, occasionally, we need to move those dates like today, but feel free to join in next time. Post your questions on the AMA thread, and see you then. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.